just stopping the bad policy ideas, talking about a sensible, compensated land reform program worked out in partnership with commercial agriculture.
How are rolling blackouts impacting on South Africa's food availability and possibly even resulting in food insecurity in the coming months and years? Joining me to unpack this issue is Terence Corrigan, project manager at the Institute of Race Relations. Terence, thanks very much for being with us. Let's just start off with the current sort of state of play with, we've got load shedding at least stages 4, 5, and 6 over the last 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. This likely to persist for the foreseeable future. What is the current situation in terms of South Africa's food, access to food and food security?
Well, yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. Look, you have to sort of divide this into various categories. Food security is a question, as you correctly say, of availability and production, and also accessibility by the broad population. Now, South Africa is very fortunate that it has a robust agricultural sector. Only contributes to 2.5 to 3% of GDP, but that relatively small proportion masks the sort of massive strategic importance of the sector. South Africa is, because of this, to some extent shielded from global inflation on food prices. When you had the disruption of world supply chains through COVID, having a strong domestic agricultural sector was key to helping us to weather that. Plus, if you think about the export earnings that our high value produce, fruits, wines, etc., and also the brand impact of that abroad, it's an important part of what makes the South African economy turn. We often tend to think that agriculture is merely a case of pulling food out the ground. It's a bounty of nature. That's, of course, rubbish. Modern agriculture is a capital-intensive process. It takes a great deal of skill, a great deal of money, and a great deal of machinery, and therein lies the rub. If you are talking, for instance, about wheat or vegetables that require irrigation, those irrigation systems require power. When power is cut, that can often shut down the whole system. And the design on some of these things means they often have to go and be turned on again manually. Now, a lot of that irrigation happens at night, so you have this in a sense, quite comic spectre of rural areas lighting up at 1 a.m. as people have to go and turn their pivots back on. Something like a dairy, which deals with very sensitive products. You have to keep milk refrigerated. Even the milking process is done electronically. Cut power to that, and it becomes an absolute nightmare. There've been videos on social media of things like of tens of thousands of liters of milk being dumped. All of that disrupts the supply chain. Now, if you go to the other end, to the consumer, think about this: a blue collar, a working class South African buys a fridge. That's 10,000-15,000 rand or whatever. That's a major outlay. The reason for that is that you want to keep your food fresh, and often buying in bulk is a strategy to keep those costs down. When your power goes off, that of course renders your fridge useless, becomes no more than a cupboard. So this hits us at both ends.
Terence, in one of your recent articles, I should say, it's sometimes difficult to keep up with all of the research and writing that you do. I do encourage everyone to follow your work at the Daily Friend. So one of your recent articles at the Daily Friend dealing with this particular topic, you spoke to a few farmers as well to get their sort of sense of how things are going on the ground. Do you think, not to put you on the spot, but do you think you see a sort of a flight of farmers, as it were? And I want to just couch that a little bit. Also, you've got this supposed dichotomy between established farmers and emerging farmers. and just how bad the consistent load shedding is for emerging farmers, especially who are trying to sort of establish themselves, not getting support from the Department of Land Reform, all this sort of stuff. Do you see that frustration and those high costs mounting to the point where many just have to either leave the country or try and find some sort of other work?
Look, anything that adds costs to any economic activity makes it more difficult now, and this is potentially a game changer. Remember that farming in South Africa deals with a multiplicity of crises: security, vandalism, stock theft, etc. The challenges of failing infrastructure. This is simply another entry into that litany of disasters, and probably for some the instance that pushes it over the edge. Now, and of course, you're going to find that there are different impacts depending on the type of agriculture you're dealing with. But yes, I would say that smaller operators simply can't absorb this sort of shock. If you so this probably contributes, and I think quite contrary to government's stated intention of consolidating, to simply make agricultural units more viable. Those that can afford to put in alternative and localized power solutions. For emergent farmers, for those that are not cash flush, I think this is the kind of thing that either pushes them out or pushes them into what is essentially a part-time or subsistence activity, where we want and we need more active commercial farmers. As I say, one thing that South Africa is renowned for globally is its agricultural produce. But that takes a particular type of investment, knowledge, etc. And you want to impose this sort of burden, it's going to be very, very hard to maintain that.
And then, Terence, a final question, just on the policy side, because we now focus a little bit on sort of the supply side issues that are affecting farmers day to day. On the policy side, things that are sort of still hanging or could come down the line. You've done a lot of work advocating against the potential implication, both the idea and the potential effect of something like expropriation without compensation. We've got the Employment Equity Amendment Bill, the Land Court Bill, all these sorts of legislative pieces hanging around. Do you foresee any of these being implemented anytime soon, and the effect that they could have also on farmers' operations?
Look, I think that South African agriculture is sort of caught in a dreadful vice grip. On the one hand, there's not enough certainty to make any plans around it, but there is enough uncertainty to dissuade investment. It's very difficult to think of a kind of worse conjunction of circumstances, unless you just have completely bad policy, which unfortunately some of the stuff is. I think that the minister responsible for agriculture and land affairs, I would say she's one of the better ministers in the cabinet, more sympathetic to her constituency than many of her peers. But this is a systemic problem. For agriculture to bloom, as it were, you need an infrastructural system that can take things from farm gate to ports to your Sainsbury's in London, or in Tokyo, or whatever. I think that that is a starting point. Do no harm first. So yes, I would advocate just stopping the bad policy ideas, talking about a sensible, compensated land reform program worked out in partnership with commercial agriculture, which has put plans on the table. That is a way forward, and realizing that ideology and rhetoric is no substitute to actual functioning systems for emerging farmers.
Thank you very much for watching. A reminder, please, before you leave, to like this video if you have not yet done so. Also, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notifications about our upcoming videos, etc. Please also keep in mind you can join up as a client of the Center for Risk Analysis. Please click on the link in the description below this video for more information. Until next time, this has been Chris Hattingh for the CRA. Take care.